What's up, YouTube? It's your boy, Lil Jitsu. Okay, you know, everybody makes fun of YouTubers for that. I had to throw it in there. Anyways, here to give you guys a little bit more context about competition. I already made a video talking about all the great things that can happen when you compete, that you can gain from competing. Well, today we're talking about the opposite side. The things that people don't tell you about jiu-jitsu competition. The not so good, the bad, and the ugly parts that make you not want to compete. And you can decide based on watching this video and the other video whether or not it's something you would like to do, and I will neither push nor pull you in any direction. Okay, now without further ado, let's get into the ugly pieces of jiu-jitsu competition. Number one, if this is your first competition, you might end up losing your first one and going home. A lot of jiu-jitsu competitions are single elimination, which means if you lose your first match, you're done. As soon as you lose, you're done. That is the case in the IBJJF, and you have to realize that 50% of your bracket is going home after the first match. If you're there spending your money, spending your time, expecting to get a lot of different practice, look at the type of competition you're doing, possibly look into submission only or a round robin tournament where you get to roll with everyone in your division. That's where you're going to get the most experience and practice. The bad side here is that if you're going to look for a lot of experience and a lot of competition experience, one competition's probably not going to do it. Unless you're going to a huge tournament, which is questionable decision making if it's your first one, you've got to understand you might only get one or two matches and then that's it. Another terrible thing about jiu-jitsu competition, and this is, you know, obviously my opinion, but I hate it, is the amount of time you're waiting, okay? Just in your bracket alone, if you have 5 people in your bracket, the bracket is probably not going to end for at least 2 hours. You're going to be waiting a significant amount of time. A lot of times tournaments don't have a huge amount of mat space or a huge amount of competition mats at a local tournament. That's also because there are other divisions going at the same time as you, going back to the mat space. In addition to that, you have to wait for your opponents to do their matches against each other. And if you're next, you have to have a 5-minute wait time between, you know, your last match and the next one. So there's just a lot of waiting when it comes to tournaments, and that's just your division. If you look at from the big picture, you know, you're getting in there at 7 a.m. sometimes trying to check your weight, make sure your weight is on point. Maybe you have kids or friends who are competing earlier in the morning, waiting for those. Significant amounts of time each bracket for that as well. And then finally, it's your turn. There's just a lot of waiting involved. I don't like that about competition, so take that into account as well. Okay, the next reason, I think this is number 3, why competitions aren't that great. Well, I misspoke. Why competitions can be annoying. That's a better way to phrase that. Competitions can be annoying because of possible injuries. I'm going to tell you this. In my time competing as a jiu-jitsu practitioner, I have gotten stitches, I've popped my knee, or my LCL to be exact, I have broken my finger, and these injuries are a part of jiu-jitsu competition. I recognize that. The level is higher, people are going harder, and the possibility of injury is greater. It is kind of frustrating to lose your match and then have to go to the ER to get stitches. That expense, that medical expense, is something that I'm paying for out of my pocket or my insurance or whatever. But, you know, I also paid to compete. I paid to get hurt. So the possibility of injuries are there, and that can be a frustrating piece of competing. If this is your first tournament, don't worry about getting injured, okay? But expect to be super sore afterwards. Every time I compete, I'm sore for at least 3 or 4 days afterwards, because of all the adrenaline, the amount of exertion I'm putting in, the sheer number of rounds that I'm doing will exhaust you, and your forearms will be sore, your neck will be sore. If you got caught in an arm bar and escaped, your arm's going to be sore. All of these things have happened to me, guys. You're going to be super sore after the tournament, and that's something to consider, especially if you got really a physically demanding job or whatever you guys are into. Keep that in mind. One of the biggest complaints I have with jiu-jitsu tournaments, and I recognize that it's not reasonable to expect anything less, is the fact that they're so damn expensive. And to be honest, I don't really blame them. The tournament organizations need to make money. They need to be able to pay staff if they have staff. They need to be able to organize, you know, mats, rent a venue. So I get it, and jiu-jitsu's not that big of a spectator sport. So competitor registration is where they're getting most of their revenue. But in the course of my 6 years of jiu-jitsu, I would estimate that I've spent probably over $4,000 just in tournament registration. you can pretty much expect every tournament you do to be at least $100. With just one match, that may or may not be worth it for you, depending on what you're trying to get from it. So keep the expense of it all in mind as well, guys. Some of you may have been waiting for this particular downside of competition, but it's the weight cutting, the weight overall. When you compete, if you don't know, there are weight brackets that you need to be within that range, and you need to sign up in advance of that range in order to compete. You can't just go to a competition, weigh in, and whatever bracket you're in is where you're at. It doesn't work like that. You have to weigh in to compete in a certain division. That means that, if you're right in the middle or on the low end of a certain weight division, you're going to have to lose a little bit of weight to make either the top end of the bottom division, or you'll have to gain weight to make the next division up, or be closer to the top of that division. That's not a requirement. Obviously, you can just sign up at what you're sitting at, but you will have to be paying attention to what you're eating and drinking, because to a certain point, if you gain a bunch of weight and you can't make weight, you're disqualified. No matches at all, and there are no refunds. It's a costly mistake for, not being super aware. If you feel anything, hit the like button, comment below what you did or did not like about this video, and subscribe to my channel. I greatly appreciate it. Subscribing just means you want to see more of my videos, and if you want to be notified when those videos come up, hit the bell notification as well. As always, guys, appreciate you checking out the channel, watching the video, and go roll.